Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Gentleman's Standard. I'm Yor-El Francis.
And I'm Cecil Burrows, and we are honored to be joined today by a entrepreneur based in Charlotte who has had quite a career. And he is the perfect voice to speak to really the foundation of building yourself up, the brand that's important, going down path and ensuring that you're doing all the necessary things to show up with command and presence. We've done some episodes relative to that in the past. And a gentleman by the name of William Wilson, the Clothier, who's based in the Charlotte area, has come through and had a career that spans from the military in the Navy, has been made history in the NASCAR space as the first African American pit crew member in the history of NASCAR, and actually won a championship with his pit crew, and has gone on to lead several different segments in industry, and has ended up in a place where we get to see the executive presentation and strategy that goes into that in building a brand. Will has mastered here in Charlotte. Mr. Wilson, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Now, you broke up a little bit. I think I got a little weak internet connection here, but I wasn't sure. I heard you say part of the NASCAR part, then it froze. I want to make sure. I don't know if you said I was the first Black pit crew member, or I want to make sure I clarify. I was the first full-time Black pit crew member because, there's a gentleman before that, raised, and he had Black pit crew members and everything. So I don't want to
That,
take away his
Fair enough.
shine.
that is
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
great. That's great. Thanks for that clarity. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah.
For,
Wendell
for
Scott.
full
Wendell
time
Scott.
pit crewing.
He's a Black driver, and of course, he didn't have any white crew members. I don't believe. So I want to make sure they get they do. They do.
Well,
Deserving
I'd
of
like
flowers. We want to make sure we don't miss that. Thanks for that clarity, Will. And
Absolutely.
we really appreciate you joining the broadcast. I think your voice is a strong one in the area that needs to be heard.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me.
so.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm curious. I want to know, where did your standards begin? Most people either are honed in during their childhood through their families, or sometimes you with a military background, it's honed in the military. But I'm curious as to where do you feel those standards that you now use in life began?
Well, start at home. Like with most things, good or bad in life, it starts at home, and that's where the seeds planted. And it's kind of been right now. You're seeing the harvest, but the seed was planted at home, watered in the military. It started to grow and germinate and started to grow and broke ground, if you will, during my NASCAR times and entrepreneurial aspect. And now it's all coming together as it is now. But it all started at home. My mom was, you had your clothes set out, and I stayed with my grandmother. You had your school clothes laid out the night before. They were ironed, they were clean. You had your school clothes and your play clothes. You had your church clothes. So everything had its place. You made your bed. Every day before I left the house, the bed was made and the room was clean. When you got from home from school, you took the school clothes off, you hung those up, or you put them in the wash. But everything had its place. So that just kind of set the tone. And then going into the military, where the military there was an exacting standard. Like these are these standards, and there's no deviation. So it didn't matter if it was the summer or you were tired, it was a long day. The standard was the standard 24/7, 365 and a quarter. And then so that set the base foundation. So when I got out of the military and joined the civilian sector, because I was never really a civilian adult. I graduated high school on May 20th. May 25th, the recruiter picked me up, took me to boot camp. So
Mhm.
5 days after high school graduation, I was on my way to boot camp. So I was never an adult as a civilian. So when I got out of the military, I had no idea how much discipline and standards I had until I got out of the military and saw how civilians lived. And I just
Mm.
couldn't believe civilians get anything done because everything is a variation or a variant. If you start at 7:30, tell people it starts at 7, so they get there by 7:15, so you can start by 7:30. With us, it was like if it started 07:30, at 07:59, you could start whatever you were doing because everyone is there, sitting there, ready to get going. So it took me a while to adjust to that, but that's where the basis, the seed was placed at home, and then watered and fertilized through the military.
Very nice. So,
Can I piggyback on that question?
100%.
When Yeah, when and it's funny you mentioned play clothes and our mothers having those laid out for us. I think each of us households have play clothes. You had to kind
Yeah,
of figure out because it's like you're not gonna make me look bad. Your mother was always concerned about you looking bad in front of somebody else's family. So trust me, we get it. We get it from that
exactly. You
standpoint.
didn't go eat at
But
other
when you
people's houses. You're like, no, no, we feed you at home. You don't go asking for food at other people's houses. You don't act a fool. If you act a fool to somebody else, they can spank you. And then you got another spank when you got home. They spank you for what you did wrong. Mama spanked you for embarrassing her in front of other people. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
exactly, you get it. When you talk about the military, which is for me, and I think about when we say standard, right? I mean, we are literally talking about a place where there is a standard set, and you are going to ensure you follow that.
Hmm.
What are some things that you learned in the military relative to your personal space and brand and the way that you showed up, whether it be for roll call or whatever, that your regular civilians would never think about? Like, did you learn something that was like, if they got wind of this, they wouldn't last, right? That became a standard for you
Well, I think
that
it.
was imparted in you.
I think fully buying into the military standard. You know, they're either you're either sat or unsat. There's three grades: unsat, unsatisfactory; sat, satisfactory; or outstanding. That's it. So it wasn't, oh, this is good enough. It's like satisfactory, you got by, but you don't want to get too many of those. You want to get outstanding because outstanding was rewarded. You know, unsat was penalized, and satisfactory was you were there. So you never stand out just being satisfactory. That's the bare minimum. Like it's literally bare minimum. So if you had a record of being satisfactory, you were never going to be asked to do anything to advance or promote yourself because all you did was get by on the bare minimum. So, and as a civilian, going transitioning into that, I see the same thing. So my standard is I don't really care what everyone else is doing. This is the standard I set. I'm not going to lower myself to your standards. You'll either raise yourself to mine or we'll just stay separated in between, all of which is fine. Just don't complain later if you don't get the same opportunities that I got when you did bare minimum and I put in extra work or extra effort.
Hmm.
Point well taken. Thanks for that.
So, I'm curious as to how you made the leap from military to NASCAR and then to Clothier and building your personal brand, and what the through line was for all those things, because there had to be something in common that led you down those roads.
Well, actually, it's a little more broken up than that because it was military, and then I got out of the Navy, moved to Charlotte. I worked in
Hmm.
construction. Actually, my first job as a civilian in Charlotte, I was a manager trainee at Waffle House.
Okay.
So from Waffle House to now worked in insurance for a few months as a temporary guy at MetLife. And then I got to construction. And then while I was in construction, I got into NASCAR. So I doing those at the same time. First working for someone else and then owning my own company. And then I transitioned from construction to, custom clothing during the pandemic. I mean, not during the pandemic, during the recession in '07, '08. But the
Uh-huh.
through line is professionalism.
Mm.
Being professional, because the military accepted nothing less than professionalism. And they showed you what professionalism was by their definition, and the definition had no give or take. It was this. There was professional and there was off duty. There was no business casual and form and all this other stuff. It was like, well, that's good enough. No, this is what the standard was. This is routine. So excellence was your norm, not your exception. And it was in everything, not just how you looked, how you prepared, how you approached it, how you acted while you were there, how you entered the building, how you left the building, and everything you did in between. There was a standard of excellence of you inside you, not just what was on the outside of you. And once you set that, that became your standard, your norm. It was just regular. And what it showed me was, especially as a civilian, that gave me an outside advantage because most civilians, they operate on that's good enough. Or this is what everyone else is doing. Well, no one else is doing that. Well, when you do what no one else is doing, that's how you stand out. In a room full of yellow M&Ms, you can always find the red one.
Hmm.
You can't figure out which yellow M&M is bigger. You'll spend all day long to have to measure all of them. But somebody says, "Hey, where's the red M&M?" You pick it up, you gone, and you're out of there. But the world's full of yellow M&Ms. That very few want to be red. They just want to be treated like they're red.
Very interesting.
So you sound like you identified a problem you were trying to solve, which is establishing standards as an excellence meter versus the norm and going against the grain from that standpoint. From that standpoint, my question to you is, as you look at it from a clothier-based perspective, one of the things I've been pretty impressed by is the ways that you approach it in layers. And you talk about clothing in a very unique and different way. When did it become clear to you this was really more than just about clothing in entering this?
But two things. I want to clarify one thing. I didn't necessarily set out to separate myself by living by that standard. It was just what it was instilled in me. So what I had to make a decision, a willful decision to do is be okay with that and not settle to fit in. So mine wasn't necessarily trying to get out from there, make a decision to stand out from them. I had to make a decision to not lower myself to that standard. I had to get
And
okay with maintaining that.
I'm glad you clarified that because that's literally one of the through lines that we talk about ad nauseum on this podcast is that it's like you, we, Cecil and myself, were raised with certain standards, and it's like we're not going to lower those standards just because you walk into a room and the people in that room standards don't meet yours. You uphold it regardless of where you are. So I'm really, really glad that you honed in on that.
hmm Now, what was the second part of that question, Caesar? I want to make sure I understand it.
When did you have quite the client list,
Mhm.
and it's allowed you to be recognized in a bunch of different ways on what you do as a clothier. But there's a component of that where you've articulated this is more than just about clothes,
Mhm.
as it relates to managing a brand. What was the moment that you knew this was more than just about clothes when you were in this particular industry?
Um, I would say the first time it's happened, like it happens, then it gets reaffirmed in different ways. So, and in retrospect, you look back, you realize, wow, this lesson being taught to me all this time, I never picked up on it until this particular day. So, I would say I had a customer. I was on Fox News Rising, and a gentleman called me. He called me right after the show and said, "Hey, I want to come get some suits from you." And the way he said, I said, "What made you reach out to me?" He said, "I saw you on television, and then I went to your website, and who I saw on television was the same person I saw on the website." He said, I'd heard of you before, but I saw your website, but everyone has a good website. When I saw you, the brand, your website matched the person, and that made me comfortable with you. And that let me realize, because I can wear a suit anywhere, but how you perform in the suit is different. A third string player for the Panthers playing linebacker and Luke Kuechly playing linebacker are dressed the same. They play the same position. They follow the same rule book. They play the same plays, but one performs better in uniform on the field. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. And the other one had a 2-year career, got traded. Now he's working for some insurance company.
Hmm. Interesting.
Point well taken. Um, Something that I've always wanted to ask you, that differentiates you from the other clothiers that are here. You have consistently, when you think about the youth and how you pour it back into them here locally, you do a suit raising fundraising drive to provide them the resources to go out and make the best first impression. Um, what are some ways or some bits of feedback that you want to make sure that the youth get connected to what they need to be thinking about as they build their brand? Because everybody's from a different place. There's a lot of folks that will look at a Will Wilson and be like, I can't afford, you're a custom tailor. You have an extremely impressive client list. How could I even engage with somebody like this to
Right.
move down path to build my brand? And what are some things I need to be thinking about early on? What's some words of wisdom you would give to the new thinker that's coming into this particular field that needs your expertise?
Get on the other side of the fence. Now, there's the side of the fence that says I can't and has a million reasons. Get on the other side of the fence that says I can and look at those reasons. Now, you may not be able to afford custom suits, but just because you can't get a custom suit, I mean you don't buy a suit at all. And so there are people who they got 55 pair of Jordans and no suit. Well, you can go to K&G or someplace like that and get you a nice, a decent suit. It may not be the best quality, the best construction, but you're at the beginning of the stage. You don't need, NFL level protection to go play Pop Warner football. When you're at this level, but you still need a suit. Get you a couple of, suits that fit your budget. Now, sometimes you may have to say, no, I'm not buying the Jordans. I'm going to buy a suit. You got to make decisions because part of success comes from making decisions. You can't have everything you want all the time. So sometimes you got to be willing to sacrifice this for the greater good because you got to figure out, probably the first thing I tell them, look at where you want to be and reverse engineer your life from there. Because you can run all day long and never get anywhere. You can run all day long and never leave your yard. Or you can run all day long and never leave your neighborhood. Or you can run all day long and across your state. With the same amount of steps, you just need direction and you need somewhere you're going to go. And so I call it your life's GPS. Because with a GPS, that's the one thing on earth you can't lie to. The GPS only asks you two questions: where you are and where you're going. And if you lie about either one of them, you're not gonna get the answer you need. You're gonna get an answer, but not the answer that benefits you. So from that point, it tells you you're here, you're trying to get here. Here's how you get here.
Sure.
And if you stick with it, if something happens, it'll shift. If there's a wreck or something, it'll tell you where to shift to go around the wreck to get you where you need to go. The problem is people say, I want to get here. They know the directions because they think they've been there before. But there's a wreck that happened. You got 45 minutes to get there. No, but there was a wreck. So now you're sitting there on 85, right after you pass your exit, you're sitting there for 45 minutes and never rolled anywhere because you turned your GPS off. And instead of being told, get off on this exit to go around the wreck, you got stuck in it because you trusted your own. Even the Bible says, lean not to your own understanding. So sometimes people trust themselves to get places they've never been. Or even worse, they listen to their buddies who've never done it. Now you get the untrained teaching the unqualified the unnecessary. Now all you're gonna do is both fail together. And the guy who never started doesn't mind that you failed because you never left him. You still sit on the stoop with him hanging out. So he's still good because his life never changed. Your life changed for the worse because you would have been here and he'd have still been sitting on the stoop because he's happy with that. So you would have separated either way, but now you got the separation and nothing to benefit from it. So I would say look from where you are and then go backwards from there. And then shop your budget. Not don't try to shop for excitement. Don't shop for clicks. Don't shop for for swaths. If for us old Third Mix-a-Lot fans, don't swath. Don't shop for approval of other people. Shop your budget because the focus is getting where you're trying to go and keep the main thing the main thing. So buy you a couple of cheap, inexpensive suits and then go to the alteration shop and get them tailored as best you can to your body so they look custom. So you look the best you can look. And especially as young black men or minorities, we don't have the leeway they do. Sometimes you don't even have the one chance. You just happen to you work so hard, you accidentally ended up in the room that could change your life. You weren't invited. You took a wrong turn, but because you looked the way you looked, they thought you were supposed to be in that room, so they opened the door. And then once you got to the room, you could perform. But if you don't dress right, you're never getting into that room in the first place. And that could be the room that changes your life. And then, 2 or 3 years from now, your whole closet full of William Wilson suits.
Yeah,
Is
I'll tell you to piggyback on your point. And we have a few subscribers in the UK. Um, they interviewed on some recent studies that showed around 1,000 hiring managers, recruiters that were going through the process and screening. They said, how important is it relative to how you show up and looking professional? And I think that's where you're going, especially on the GPS to plan where you are versus where you want to be. And reverse engineering, I love that concept. 90% said, look, the person who's dressed professionally and showing up with a professional brand has the opportunity and the lean for consideration of moving to the next level. So everything you're saying is backed by science, backed by how we react. And generally, from a brand impression perspective, I've always known this to be the case. Within 7 seconds, people have started judging around where they think you're going. This conversation is going to go based off how you show up. So everything you're saying has been supported by fact. And for you knowing that that's more than just clothing and the ways that you approach it, it sounds like what you're saying is have a strategy around how you go and don't let somebody influence you that hasn't planned accordingly to build a brand themselves that deters you from where you want to go. And that's amazing, the way you approach it. And forgive me, I think I talked over you.
no worries. I'm curious though, was there a moment when you knew that this was more than just clothes, that personal branding and the way you carry those clothes sends a message before you even open your mouth? Was there like a aha moment, or was that always built in to how you approached your craft?
Well, I think it was always built in. Like I was taught that from the beginning, and then just watching the way people interact with me in general. If I have on a suit, I could be walking down the street. If I have on a suit, I'm Mr. Wilson. If I have on jeans and a T-shirt, that same person that's invited me to their house for dinner may cross the street if I look too thuggish, but I'm the
Mm,
same person.
mm,
So, and people address you the way you're addressed. If you
mm,
look broke, people treat you broke. You know, if someone hits you in the head with a rock, you see somebody dressed like a police officer, you're going to run up to the police officer. Now, if he tells you, hey, I'm a financial planner, you can't get mad. People keep running up to you and people hurt them because you dressed like a cop. If you dress like a cop, people treat you like a cop. If you dress like a bum, people treat you like a bum. You dress like you're successful, people will treat you like successful, even if you're not. You know, I and you may be just an average Joe Blow person because people love to push back and say, you know what, just because I don't have on a suit don't mean you're not a professional. That's true, but people in suits don't have to explain that
mm,
because the person in the suit they assume he's professional, and he may be the maitre d just got off work. The person in the jeans and the t-shirt, you may have a PhD and be the best at what you do, but people gonna look right by you because you're dressed like they're gonna detail their car. No disrespect to car detailers, but you don't look like somebody I could trust to do my money. You look like somebody I would trust to wash my car, cut my grass. So you can't get upset. Like I said, you have the right. You have the right to live the life you want, the way you want to live it, but you don't have the right to the consequences that you want to come from it.
mm.
And that's it. No, that's where people make the mistake. They think, well, I can do what I want to. Yes, you can, but that does not absolve you from the repercussions of your actions.
It's funny. We one of the things that got us down path on this, Will, was listening to a lot of the alpha male rhetoric that's thrown out there for folks that are looking for advice. Oh, listen, I got to get in this room and I'm going to be the loudest and I'm going to be bombastic when I'm in that particular space, but they show up looking not the part. Right. And they're listening to folks that are able to do exactly what you said is, listen, I'm in t-shirts, flip flops. That's what's important to me. But you seem to forget that the person giving you this advice is worth $20 million and they can afford to give you that bad advice for somebody that's just starting out. You got to go from the starting point to first base to get to second base. And you can't get there thinking that you're on third when you have no
Exactly.
plan or strategy gets you to first from that standpoint. So for me is amazing what you're putting through to the folks that are going down path on this. You've got to listen to folks who are trying to get you to the first base. You got to establish that first, is what I think I'm hearing from
Yeah, well, it's like I said, you get the untrained teaching the unqualified, the unnecessary. And the biggest industry in the world is the ignorance industry. People are preying
you.
off the ignorant to get ahead. You get somebody who gets on these stages and they're telling you all these motivational speakers. I have no interest in being a motivational speaker. I'm an educational speaker. To be a motivational speaker is a high priced cheerleader. All they're gonna tell you is you can do it. That's wonderful. So you can spend $300, $400, $500, $5,000 going to this motivational speech, and you see Gary V and Alex Hermosi and Eric Thomas and Myron Golden, all these guys tell you you can do it, you can do it, Now you're all hype and everything, but then you leave that conference, you go home and sit back in front of your computer. You learned nothing.
Hmm.
They hyped you up, made you feel good. It's like you want to play for the Panthers. You get a workout. You come in, but you don't train. You don't hire a trainer. You don't even go to the gym to work out. You just happy with the fact that you're in the building, going to be there for that workout. But you're not thinking the bigger picture. Most people need to climb the tree. And I'll talk about that in a second. Because most people stay on the ground. So they're like, I got to work out with the Panthers. And all they think is, this is my one opportunity. That's not your one opportunity. Because if you put the extra work in and do the things you need to do, you may work out with the Panthers. You may not get that spot, but you may be so impressive that one of the position coaches may call one of their coaches on another team and say, hey, you need to look at this guy. And now suddenly the Panthers didn't pick you up, but the Saints did.
Hmm.
Now you're on the Saints practice squad. But you're like, well, I'm still not on the roster. But now you on the team. Now you can show up and show out there. You may make third string. Well, third string, you part of that 53-man roster. You getting a check. You getting game checks now. But if you keep working now and someone gets hurt, God forbid, but sometimes we didn't. If Drew Brees doesn't get hurt, we don't know who. I mean, not Drew Brees. If Drew Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, we don't know who Tom Brady is. But he gets hurt, boom. Now you get your spot. Now you're on second team. You playing special teams. You the gun on special teams. You the man. Now people paying attention to you. Hey, somebody gets hurt. Hey, we'll trade you for this guy. Now you go from special teams over here. Now you just starting Mike linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All because now people will say, ignorant sports fans will say, oh, that's because he was showing out in special teams. No, it's because he showed out when he had his chance for the workout. Because if you don't do the workout, none of the rest of this stuff happens. There's an old Chinese proverb. A man named Tom Feldman told me. He said, "Starving man wait long time for roast duck to fly in his mouth." But a lot of people sit back and wait for that, or they listen to people who have
Yeah.
done nothing to tell them how to do extraordinary things, or they do just a little bit and want to be treated like they're a superstar. Taking care of your children is not something to be applauded. That's to be expected. You had them. Take care of them. If I buy a car and I don't make the car payments, or buy a car and I make the car payments and I pay the insurance and I keep the gas and I keep it maintained, my reward is I get to keep the car. Don't cheer for me for taking care of something I bought. Cheer for me if I take that car and then turn that car into a Uber management company or something like this where it makes me money and now I'm making $200,000 from that car. Applaud that. Don't applaud me just because of the fact I'm doing the bare minimum of what I'm required to do. But too many people want to be applauded for doing the bare minimum and treated like they're a superstar when they're not really doing anything.
So true.
So I'm gonna give you some flowers though. When we talk about people doing exceptional things. Um, your achievements list from the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award signed by President Biden. Again, inducted into the North Carolina Military Veterans Hall of Fame, and thank you for your service. Um, Very much appreciated. NASCAR champion, which cannot be taken away from you, and one a clothier who has been acknowledged as Charlotte's best custom suit designers by Charlotte Magazine, best custom clothier 9 times by Elevate Lifestyle Magazine. Your client list includes D.L. Hughley, Oscar De La Hoya, Eddie Griffin, Brad Williams, Steph Curry. For somebody to get that type of client list, they've got to know what they're doing and they've got to be able to show that they're excellent in their profession. So, the flowers to you, sir, as you go down path. My question to you, that I'm sure some of our listeners would want to understand is one, what did you do to secure that type of client list? And quite frankly, without telling secrets, what have you noticed that some folks have been doing wrong that you had to come in and help them adjust to get on the right path around caring for their brand as relates to clothing?
Um, well, first, thank you for the flowers. I appreciate it, but it's not all me. Sometimes life is, I tell people all the time, life is like a rain dance. It's all about timing.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're just in the right place at the right time. The way I met DL Hughley, I had used to do my golf tournament. And one day, the one year I did it on a Tuesday, Rodney Perry was here for it. And DL Hughley had a one night show in Charlotte. And at the end of the show, we were all looking for something to do. He said, "Hey man, DL Hughley's gonna be in town. You wanna go check out his show? Want to meet him?" I'm like, "Yeah, I never met him." So I go in, we're in this green room, and the crazy thing is, DL talked to everybody but me that night. Like we got introduced. So I was like, man, did I do something to upset it? But again, we had like Miss Virgin Islands was there, Jay Harris from ESPN, J. Alexander Martin, one of the founders of FUBU, was there. Like I was the least famous person at my event. So the next time DL came to town, I said, you know what? I want to make suits for him because everybody knew DL dressed fly. I'm like, I wanted him to be one of my clients. So I did the Cardinal.
We lost
Hello,
you.
can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, somebody tried to call in, these telemarketers. But
That's all right. You say you did the car. You said you did the
yeah.
cardinal
So
rule.
I broke the cardinal rule by sitting in the front row in the middle. So DL, like a lot of times he does his show, then he'll just go down the road and just start hitting everybody. And he jumped over me and just kept on going. I'm like, man, I must really upset him. But I'm like, I didn't even say anything to him. So when he got these family, DL Hughley, thank you, good night. He's shaking hands. I went to shake his hand. I said, hey, DL, I don't know if you remember me. I met you at my golf tournament. He said, hey, just come back to the green room. Now, of course, he could just go out the back and just go through the thing. I had to go through the people and all this. So when I get there, I walk into the green room, DL sitting in a chair right in front of the door. Now, I have practiced this speech all week in case I get the opportunity. Because too many people work at expectation. I don't work out of, I operate out of anticipation, not expectation.
Hmm.
I get ready to anticipate in case I get the opportunity, not that I expect to get it, but if I get it, I want to be prepared. So I had this entire speech I've been working on for 4 days since I bought the tickets. I walked in. The first two things DL says to me is, looking sharp as usual, young man. You supposed to make me a suit. First two sentences. Now,
Wow.
none of that happens if I don't enter my golf tournament that day. That one time we did on a Tuesday, and Rodney Perry happened to be there, and we went to the show, and then I bought a ticket to sit in the front row, so I'm able to introduce myself again, so he can come back there. I never asked DL to become a client. Before I walked in the room, he had already decided he's gonna make a suit for I was gonna make a suit for him. So but all that happened because of timing. Now
Hmm.
you listed off a bunch of my accomplishments, and I try to tell people you can fill a page with my accomplishments. You can fill a book with my failures, and
Hmm.
that's what people miss out on. Michael Jordan missed more shots than he took. Tiger Woods lost more tournaments than he won. You know, Tom Brady, well, that's kind of different. But I was gonna say he lost more games than he played, but
Yeah.
he didn't. But he made less. But he missed. He didn't make every first down he went out for. He didn't make every completion. So this whole people have this hip hop mentality. All I do is win and all this stuff. No, people say failure is not an option. You're right. It's not an option. It's an absolute guarantee. You're going to fail somewhere, but failing and being a failure is two different things. Failing is a verb. Failure is an adjective. And I failed. I wanted to be I wanted to be a driver in NASCAR. It just became very apparent very soon I didn't have the money, the resources, the talent, the skill, or the opportunity to ever become one. But there have been plenty of black NASCAR drivers. I was the first black man to win a championship. So I failed into succeeding. You see what I'm saying? When I joined the Navy, I couldn't swim the length of my body. Now I'm a North Carolina Military Veterans Hall of Fame. I've never taken a design class. I've never taken a fashion class. I've given the commencement speech at 3 different fashion schools. And I taught all of them the same way. Every student I spoke to knew more about fashion than I do. I know very little about fashion. I know suits, and suits. I stick with what I know to get good at the one thing that I do. I don't need to be everything all over the place. I just do the one thing. But too many people want to be masters of the universe. I want to be master of my house.
What's a cheap now, expensive later mistake you see men make when it comes to putting together their wardrobe, their professional wardrobe suits?
Not having one.
Good
That's
point.
easy.
Yep.
I see men, and they don't understand. Saying you don't own a suit isn't the flex you think it is. Because my first thought is, if you don't own a suit, forget the work part of it. Because people always say, well, I don't need to wear a suit for work. I'm like, you don't play for the Panthers, but you got a jersey. You don't play for the Hornets, but you got Jordans. So clearly your wardrobe and your employment have nothing to do with each other. But my second thing is, where do you take your lady or your significant other when you want to go out and celebrate something? What do you wear? You can't wear slacks and a button down everywhere. You can't wear that same old dried out coat that you wear to every single event ever. If you get a great promotion, or she gets a great promotion, or she graduates something, or just something, you want to celebrate your anniversary, you get dressed up. What do you wear? And then I ask them, does your significant other, does she have a bunch of dresses in her closet? They're like, yeah. I'm like, do you think she bought all those dresses to wear with her friends? She wants her Cinderella moment. Every woman wants to get dressed up and have white tablecloth service and have a menu with no numbers on the side of it. You just order what you want to get. They want that Cinderella moment. But you're not prepared to be Prince Charming to be her Cinderella. So that tells you from that start, that's where I see people mess up, because there are some places you can't go without a suit. There's some places you can't walk into. If I got invited to a really amazing event, they said, hey, you can bring a +1. There are some people that it could change their worlds, and I can't invite them because they don't own a suit. It's got nothing to do with your skills, your talent. You could probably get in that room and own room, make me look like a teenager, make me look like a novice. You're so knowledgeable. But you don't have a key. The suit is the key that unlocks that door to that room, and you don't have the key. You got a Ferrari and no keys. Your car is going nowhere. And that's the biggest. So when you say what's the biggest before and after effect you see with people with suits, not owning one. Everything else can be fixed. But if you don't own one in the first place, you can't fix the problem, because the problem is the fact you don't have it.
Excellent point.
Can I can I jump on a point you made, which is what's always impressed me about you, Will, in a room is you seem to move with some type of strategy. It's like every conversation you're involved in has a purpose. And Yor-El and I have talked about that. You talked about somebody coming in the room and making you, outshining you and it seems like those are the individuals that come in a room with a strategy. What advice would you give to somebody who have they have secured the suiting, gotten into a room, but what you've seen is impressive around how they command the room. What are some things that you've seen that really stuck out to you when you've seen that individual in action?
Own your brand. Know your brand and own it. And see, so you've seen me in numerous different occasions. I'm the same person where I got on shorts and sneakers, I got on a suit, or I have on a tuxedo, because my brand is my standard for William Wilson. I own me. So no matter where I go, I take me. So it starts long before you ever. Everyone's talking about moving into the rooms and building tables and all this other stuff, being invited to the table. Now the big thing is, they're gonna invite you to their table, build your own. What the hell is the point of having a table? Nobody gonna come sit at it with you. If you don't have the same reason you're not getting invited to their table, the same reason nobody wants to come sit at yours. The people who do sit at your table just complain about not being at the table they want to be at. You're the constellation prize, because you built a room up, you built a 6, 7, 8, 10 person participation trophy. So until you become someplace where somebody wants to go, and if you were there, you'd be invited to those rooms. But it all starts long before you start thinking about rooms and thinking about all this other stuff. Like when I got to NASCAR, I just wanted to make the team. I never thought about winning races and winning championships. That was nowhere on my mind. The focus was making the team. So I would tell people, first thing you do, decide who you want to be. Again, life's GPS. Find 2 or 3 people that you really admire, that you like about them, and then figure out what things are you like about them, and decide, who do you want to be. If someone says Cecil Burrow, what do you want them to think when they hear that name? If someone says William Wilson, I think, what do I want them to think when I hear that name? And then set my life, not a strategy, set my life up to become that person.
Hmm.
Because I can't expect you to see me as William Wilson, the football player, if I don't play football. Even if I play intramural football, you're still going to go William Wilson, the suit man. So I need to set my life up to be what I want you to see. So, and then you go from there, and then you own that space, own your quirkiness. I love hot dogs. I will take a hot dog over a steak every day of the week. I don't eat them all that often because they're not the best for you, but that's who I am. I'm a country boy from Arkansas. I do my grocery shopping at Walmart on Wilkinson Boulevard, and I can shop anywhere on earth, but that's where I go because that's who I am. I'm not ashamed of it. I sit next to the CEO of Lowe's or CEO of Harris Teeter and say, yeah, I do my shopping here. I'm not ashamed of that because that's who I am. You got to do it. Budgetary restraints. I own who I am, the good, the bad, the other. So, and I always tell people, it's better to be hated for who you are than loved for who you're not. A lot
Hmm.
of people try to be everything to all people. I hate okra. Can't stand it. You feed me okra, I'm going to puke all over your house. But some people love okra. That's okay. It's just not for me. Everything's not for everybody. I love peanut butter. Some people hate peanut butter. Some people have allergies. That's okay. I won't feed you peanut butter when you come to my house. But when you leave, I'm gonna keep eating peanut butter. But because that's who I am. So I think most people, before you walk in the room, know who you are, own who you are, find out what things about you work against you. And too many people, they get cocky. They're like, this is just who I am. They gotta accept it. No, the hell they don't. I ain't gotta accept anybody. I respect your right to be who you want to be, because you have the right to be who you want to be. You don't have the right to access to my life. So if I don't like who you are, I don't like your vibe, I don't like you, whatever, I don't owe it to you to let you have access to me.
Hmm.
Just you buy suits from me. You're not doing me a favor buying a suit from me. You bought something you needed. You bought a suit. I gave you a suit. It was a transaction. Now, hopefully in that transaction, we become friends, build a relationship, but you're still going to know who I am. You never be buying enough suits from me to buy me. You can't afford me. Elon Musk can't afford me because I'm not for sale. So the
Hmm.
standard I set, I stick to that standard. Some people are going to like it. Some people aren't. And that's okay. If you like by everybody, you're hated by everybody because they don't know who you are. You're changing who you are for everybody. No one knows you. So you got to figure out who you are when you walk in the room. That way, when you walk into the room, you have the confidence and the self-esteem and the pride and know who you represent and who you are helps you accomplish the goal you want to accomplish.
Well, I think that's
What
a
what
great. Go ahead, Cecil.
Yeah, what was interesting for me is as you're kind of going down path on this, because it seems to be, and you're all talk about pulling the thread through. When you've had you have a client list that spans sports, entertainment, and industry. Um, One question I wanted to make sure we got asked was, what changes in how you dress a man, and what stays exactly the same across all those industries in your experience?
The only thing that's the same is the suit has a jacket and a pair of pants. It should have a custom shirt that goes with it. That's the only thing that stays constant. Because everything, that's why, like I said, I'm not a fashion guy. I'm not a stylist. I'm a suit guy. I can talk to you about suits. I'm good. I can throw in a suit. I'm good to go. I can throw casual. In between, I struggle with that. I got to figure stuff. I got to look online to find out stuff that goes together too. But I work from style because fashion is dictated by the market. Style is dictated by your personal feeling. I'm not a bow tie guy. If you ever see William Wilson in a bow tie, he has on a tuxedo. Some people love bow ties. Some people can't stand them. My thing is, when I sit down at the table with you, I want to know who you are. One, what you're trying to accomplish. What's your goal? Because say you're an introverted person, but you want to be more extroverted. Okay, I want to understand what's your tolerance of being outside the box. What's your risk tolerance? Because I can put you in a suit to get you a whole lot of attention. The problem is, if you're not used to that much attention, it could freak you out and push you further back in the bubble than you were before you got there. So I may need to say, you know what? You don't need to start with really nice fancy suits. Get you a basic suit and a couple of nice dress shirts. So you get used to starting to get attention. So when you look in the mirror, you like what you see there. That helps build that confidence. And then you start getting a little more attention. Then as you start getting used to the attention, then you can kind of expand and play around with some other things. So then as you start getting more and more attention, it's happening comfortably. Now you're growing into your suit wardrobe. Whereas if I bring you in something, like I said, just that gets you a whole lot of attention, everyone's looking at you, and you're a true introvert, and people make you nervous. Now you got people in your face all the time. It's almost like, you ever seen like autistic kids where there's so much noise happening and they just freak out? You'll freak out because it's sensory overload. You're not used to that much attention, and the body doesn't recognize good stress from bad stress. It just knows stress, and your mind's going to react to that, and it may throw you off. You're like, I never want to experience that feeling again. Even though everyone's trying to compliment you, it's too much for you at one time. It's like you were thirsty, so you went to turn on a water hose, and ended up being a fire hose. You got sprayed with way too much water. Now you're afraid of the hose. So I got to understand that. So every client is different based on what their needs are, where they're starting from, what they're trying to get to, and why. Because I've talked people out of buying suits. I've had people call me, I want your most expensive suit. No, you don't. One, you can't afford it. Two, it'd be stupid for you to buy. My most expensive suit is going to cost you $60,000 because it's a vicuña. It's way too expensive, and you're not going to wear it that often. And I've had people walk in, expect to spend $3,500 on one suit. I say, don't do that. Get these three suits for $3,600. That way, you got more suits, you get more for your money, and it benefits me because now instead of me hoping someone sees you in the one suit, I got three more opportunities, and now your closet has three William Wilson suits. Better chance of every time you leave the house, you got on one of my suits, especially if you're just getting started. That also builds that trust where I'm not after your money, I'm after your 30-year relationship. And that only happens from me building trust, not just from having an expertise in suits, but also listening to you, understanding what you want to do, and directing you to where if you want to spend too much money, no, don't spend that much money here. Here, save this here. Because most people, you want to spend $3,500? When you leave, you spend $3,500 on one suit. So it's about building that trust, that relationship. And in everything, relationships are all that matter. Your relationship and your brand, all that matter.
Well, I think that's a great place to come to a closing thought. Uh,
Well, can can I add on, because there's two
yes.
things I've been wanting to ask Will during our time. So
Mhm.
push the envelope a little bit if you don't mind.
Hey, I got all
Yorel,
that.
the first and foremost, you have quite a list of female suit acquirers, and when it comes to that, there's a big thing that pulls into a brand based view on them building their brand. One, I'd love to know your advice you'd give to females looking to purchase, really enhance their brand image. One. And then the second question I have for you is, individuals or listeners that are on here that want to be clothiers, what advice would you give to them?
Well, that's two completely different things. But as far as
Yeah.
what I would tell the females, I would tell a female client the same thing I tell a male client, because brand has no gender. You know,
Mm,
right and wrong, truth, honesty, all those things, building relationship, all does that. Now, what I would say, if anything, as I tell everyone, use your strengths, but don't make them weaknesses. Now, we all know. I think we're three decently attractive guys. There's not the us, and I don't mean to sound sexist when I'm using the grading scale, so nobody bombards Cecil and everybody with email saying I was being sexist. But say a 7 will get way more men will talk to a 7 than will talk to us. So an attractive woman is going to get attention just because she's attractive. Use that, but don't exploit it. Because if you lead with your looks, no one's going to respect who you are behind your face. So always be professional, no matter how attractive you are or unattractive you may feel you are. Don't lead with sexuality. Don't lead with flirting. Don't lead with this. And don't buy clothing that's going to enhance your figure to over sexualize you, cause you to become an object of obsession and possession and not respected for your mind. Don't hide from your beauty, but don't try to overutilize it, because you're going to send out a signal that you don't want to have sex. Now, what was the second question? I know there are two totally different things.
Second question are individuals that are looking to enter into this field. What advice would you give to them on getting started, just putting their first foot forward?
Well, first I say make sure this is the field you want to get into. See,
mm,
I've had over the years, you'd imagine hundreds of people say, "Man, I want to be a clothing designer." And I ask them why, and their first answer is, "I like fashion." If you like fashion and clothing design, ain't got nothing to do with each other. They have zero to do with each other. I can't stand fashion. I could care less about fashion. So I can't tell you 7 fashion designers. I have never watched Project Runway or any of those shows. It does not interest me whatsoever. I care more about watches than I do suits. But I have mastered my craft. But I love business. I love being a businessman. So I'd approach, if I was selling toothpicks, if I was selling water, I would do the exact same thing, approach it from a professional level, because everything I've done, from achieving in the military, NASCAR, entrepreneurship. 'Cause I used to own, like I said, I owned a construction company. Only did custom homes, 8,000 square feet and up. I was a framing contractor. I approached all 4 of these avenues the exact same way. The thing is, you gotta not love fashion. You gotta love business. Because everybody loves fashion. You gotta love business. You gotta love doing the branding, marketing. That stuff's the fun part, being on social media. But putting your infrastructure together. And if you don't have enough capitalization, because entrepreneurship is you eat what you kill. So if you don't sell, you don't eat. So make sure you got enough capital ahead of time to take that pressure off of you. Because if you say you want to be a custom clothier, I want to do, we might want to work at your level. Make sure you got enough money to sustain you till you build your reputation and your brand and your presence to the point where enough people know who you are that you can get those kind of clients. Because people are going to ask you, why should I go to you when I can go here? And you got to have an answer for them. Now, I have a very unique answer when people ask me that question, because I approach it from a business standpoint. It has nothing to do with clothes whatsoever. It has to do with time.
mm.
But you got to be able to understand that. So if you like fashion, and you just want to be a clothing designer because you like fashion, no. you need to like fashion and want to be able, you have something to offer, not just what it has to offer you. Because it's not about having a good time. Because entrepreneurship, regardless of what all these celebrity entrepreneurs tell you, is lonely. It's scary. It can be frightening. You know, for every 15 seconds you see me on a red carpet, there's hours and weeks and months of work that goes into it before then. You know, there are days when you're tired and exhausted. When I first got started, I was everywhere. You know this, Cecil. I was everywhere. I was going so hard. One day I got home and went to untie my shoe. I woke up 2 hours later with my shoestring still in my hand, bent over trying to untie my shoes. I was so exhausted, I passed out untying my shoes, and my back hurt me for 2 days. That's how much I was going. You know, so you gotta be willing to, if you don't, just because you love fashion, you gotta love the work. You gotta love the journey. You gotta love all the ups and the downs. See, the thing is, people want, people say they want to be famous, though they want the perks of the fame. Because you get to where there's some stuff, me, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm not at strip clubs, all that's not my thing. But if someone cusses you out at hash cheater, you have the privilege of responding differently than I do. Because if I act a fool, somebody go hit record, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TMZ, my brand just got shot in 30 seconds. Sometimes I gotta bite my tongue and keep walking. Where if I was just regular Joe Blow, I'm not just saying I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. That's not what I'm saying. But I built a brand that sometimes you become a prisoner of that brand. So you have to understand that. So with all the accolades that you saw, all that comes with societal expectations. People expect me to be a certain way. And my brand, because that's my brand, that's who I am. But we talk about maintain that standard. That standard goes across everything, not just the way I look, but it's the way I act, the way I speak to people, the way I engage with people, the way I respond to people. All those avenues are things you never can forget. I'm only safe 2 places in the world, Cecil. Two. In my apartment and at my mama's house. Everywhere else, I am subject to have to deal with the repercussions of my actions interacting with other people. So in some places I can't go. Some people I can't hang out with because I not only have my brand, people know I do suits for DL. They know I do suits for Eddie Griffin. If I do something, it's not, and I gets in the paper, it's not just William Wilson, it's William Wilson, personal clothier for Eddie Griffin and DL Hughley. Not all those people are pulled into something that has nothing to do with them. They're trusting that I am who they think I am because they're connecting their brands to mine.
Hmm.
So I have a responsibility to every client that comes in. See, so you have some of my suits in your closet. I can't act a fool because you've invited me on your podcast. You've had me on your podcast. If I act a fool, I embarrass both of you. I have a responsibility to you to make sure I don't do things to screw up what you're doing because I can hurt your brand by acting a fool. But that's the things people don't think about, the prison you build in your success when you're trying to do something and the obligations that when gentlemen like you open your doors and say, William, come to my house. You're trusting that I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to act a fool. And that you can tell somebody, go back and look at me and my brand matches your brand. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. And if I act a fool, you won't invite me back. And you take it down because I'll embarrass.
I I just want to say I love the fact that we're ending where we started because we began with our parents and acting a fool and adhering to a standard. And here we are right back at the same place, but graduated to a different level. And I just love that fact because it just shows you what standards are. And you carry them with you throughout your entire life. And I think if there's one message that we're trying to get across, it's that message.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Hey man, just years and years. And though, like I said, you and I just meeting, but I've known Cecil for years. You know, iron sharpens iron. You know, the person I see right now is who I see Cecil to be all the time. You know, he's always on brand. So that's why I know I gotta make sure I cover, I fulfill my commitment and honor my commitment and respect our relationship for him to invite me on it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I will say one of the things that has always impressed me with interacting with Will in and around town. One is that when Will is there, it is something of substance. When he's involved and engaged in whatever it may be, it's something that is going to have some kind of impact one way or the other. And the work that he does around from his foundational give back, he knows I'm a person of the community as well. He does some things that are focused around from learnings in the past around violence and overcoming obstacles within that particular space, and then also helping the youth again make the right impression and build an impactful brand and being protective. A lot of the things that he does is being protective of the community. So I have had the pleasure of being in and around his circle, being a part of some of his outreach initiatives in and around Charlotte, and to see those that benefit from that type of stuff. Will, you just keep crushing it, man. We appreciate you taking the time on being on here. We appreciate the places and spaces and where you're showing up and giving back. And we want to honor you and giving you the opportunity to help us have a conversation with those that need to hear it around building a strong foundation, because that's what you can continue to do for your clients and for yourself.
I
So
appreciate
thank you.
that. I appreciate that. Thank you guys, and thank you for sponsoring a suit for my His First Suit initiative. I appreciate that. We'll be able to, gift a young man his first suit. So I appreciate that. Thank you guys for having me. Everyone we come back again, just hit me up, and I'll be.
Yeah, the
And
Gentleman Standard are proud to support that effort.
absolutely. We just want to also thank the audience for listening and tune in next week for another episode of the Gentleman Standards.
Thanks, sir.
Take care, everybody.